You know that feeling, right? You can settle in, watch a whole movie in English, follow every little plot twist, maybe even get the subtle jokes. You read articles, understand pretty complex ideas. But then, and this is where it gets frustrating, someone asks you something simple in English.
And suddenly it's like your brain just hits a wall.
Exactly. Your tongue just won't cooperate. That gap between, understanding so much and actually being able to speak fluently, confidently.
It's a really common challenge. So many language learners run into this.
Yeah.
And today we've got some really insightful stuff to look at. We're digging into ideas from understand English but can't speak, tips to start speaking confidently.
And our mission is to really unpack why this silent gap feels so huge for many of you listening.
We want to pull out some truly actionable strategies.
Yeah, concrete things you can actually start doing today to bridge that gap, to move from just like passive understanding to confident, natural-sounding speech.
Making that leap.
Exactly. Okay,
Yeah.
Let's unpack this.
So what's interesting right off the bat, as our sources highlight, is that initial phase, the receptive period.
Where you're just soaking everything up.
Yeah, absorbing vocabulary, grammar, expressions, mostly through reading and listening. And that builds a crucial foundation, no doubt.
But it's not speaking.
Right. The real challenge, as they point out, is making that switch, going from just taking the language in to actively producing it yourself.
It's so true. You can understand a really tricky article, follow all the nuances in a film.
Even get the jokes in a podcast, like this one maybe.
Hopefully. But when it comes to actually forming your own thoughts and saying them out loud in English, well, it feels like a totally different skill.
It really is. The source uses this great analogy, comparing it to understanding a complex piano piece.
Ah, right. You can listen, appreciate the structure, the pianist's skill.
But just appreciating it doesn't magically let you sit down and play it yourself, does it?
Not at all. That takes practice. Specific practice.
Exactly. What the text calls muscle memory. And that's precisely what you need for speaking a language fluently. It's about training your mouth, your vocal cords, your brain.
To all work together in this new way.
Yeah. It's not just knowing the words in your head.
It's activating everything. Your vocal cords, coordinating your breath, and having that mental speed, that flexibility.
To grab the right words and grammar and string them together in real time.
It's physical as much as mental.
Definitely. And linking this to the bigger picture, the source brings in the psychological side too. Confidence.
Yeah, that fear of making mistakes, of sounding silly or not being understood.
It can be absolutely paralyzing. And that anxiety, unfortunately, can make you avoid speaking situations.
Which then just reinforces the gap, right? It's this self-feeding loop. The less you speak,
the less confident you feel.
Yeah.
And the wider that gap seems.
Absolutely. And another big thing our sources point to explaining this gap is this mental habit. I think a lot of us do it.
The constant mental translation.
Yes. Translating everything from your native language into English in your head before you say anything.
It's interesting, the text really highlights how this, while it feels natural early on, becomes a major bottleneck later. It really restricts fluency.
Think about it trying to have a normal conversation while you're basically running a live translation service in your head.
Plus a grammar check. It just drastically slows down your ability to respond naturally, spontaneously.
It really does. And it often makes your spoken English sound a bit hesitant, maybe unnatural.
Yeah, definitely hesitant because you're not directly accessing English. You're going through this extra mental step every single time.
Like constantly checking a map for a route you should already know.
Good analogy. And the text makes a critical point here. Grammar structures, idioms, common phrases. They rarely line up perfectly between languages.
Oh, for sure.
So if you translate literally, word for word, you often end up with English that sounds awkward. Or sometimes it's just plain wrong, even if the original sentence was perfect in your language.
You're right. So the goal ultimately is to try and bypass that native language filter.
And start accessing English concepts, English ways of saying things directly.
But how do you even start doing that? It sounds hard.
That's a key question, and the sources offer some really practical ideas. They emphasize it's a gradual process, this shift to thinking in English.
It takes conscious effort, right? And sticking with certain habits.
Exactly. And one of the main habits mentioned is actively creating an immersive English environment, even if you don't live in an English-speaking country.
Right, this seems obvious, but the how is important.
Yeah, the text really stresses the power of just surrounding yourself with the language. Constant passive exposure.
So listening to English music, watching movies and shows in English, maybe without subtitles eventually.
Ideally, yeah, or with English subtitles first. reading English books, articles, websites on topics you actually find interesting.
That helps.
Even small things like changing the language settings on your phone, your computer, your apps, it all adds to that feeling of immersion.
It's about keeping English constantly around your brain. The idea being, I guess, that you start to internalize common phrases, ways of saying things more naturally.
Exactly. Without consciously thinking about translating them, you're sort of building this internal library of English you can draw from more quickly.
Like it becomes more automatic?
Hopefully, yes. But, and this is crucial, the sources are clear. This isn't an overnight fix.
No quick magic bullet.
Definitely not. It takes time, consistency, and, a real commitment to creating and using that immersive environment. But even small, regular doses add up over time.
Okay, so immersion is key. But let's tackle that other big barrier, the one that really fuels the silent gap. Fear, the fear of making mistakes.
Yeah, it's like we see errors as these huge failures instead of, just part of learning.
Right. The source's take on this is really helpful, I think. It argues pretty strongly that making mistakes isn't just natural.
It's absolutely essential. It's how you learn.
Yeah.
Think about it. Even native speakers mess up sometimes.
True. Expecting perfection from yourself in a second language right away is just unrealistic.
And counterproductive, really.
Yeah.
It stops you from practicing.
So instead of seeing an error as something embarrassing, we need to try and reframe it, see it as feedback.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Valuable feedback. It shows you precisely where you need to focus. Maybe it's a pronunciation thing, a grammar point you haven't quite nailed down, or a word you keep misusing.
It highlights the gaps in your knowledge.
Perfectly put. And the text uses that analogy of online fail videos,
Uh-huh.
People often laugh at their own stumbles, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they learn from them too.
Yeah.
It encourages us to maybe take language learning a little less seriously sometimes.
Don't beat yourself up over every little slip-up.
Right. Embrace the imperfections as stepping stones. They show you're trying, you're pushing your boundaries. They're not reasons to just give up.
Okay, so we're working on immersion. We're trying to be kinder to ourselves about mistakes. What are some actual techniques we can use to actively get our speaking skills moving? The sources talk about shadowing.
Ah, yes, shadowing.
Yeah.
It's a really powerful technique. Basically, you listen to a native English speaker.
Like on a recording or video.
Yeah, exactly. And you try to repeat what they're saying almost at the exact same time, like you're their vocal shadow.
Okay.
And it's not just repeating the words like a parrot. It's about really tuning in and trying to copy how they say it, the nuances.
So not just what they say, but the pronunciation, the intonation.
Precisely. The pronunciation, the intonation that rise and fall of the voice, the rhythm, the cadence, even the little pauses they use.
Interesting. So it's like training your ear and mouth together.
It really is.
Okay.
The source compares it to vocal training. You're exercising your vocal muscles and your mental agility to adapt to English sound patterns. It strengthens that connection between listening and speaking.
That makes a lot of sense. So how would you actually start doing this? Sounds a bit intense.
Start small. The sources suggest using short audio or video clips. Things you find interesting, maybe a minute or two from a podcast, a short scene from a show.
Not a whole lecture right away.
Definitely not. Focus on that short segment. Really listen closely. Try to mimic the pronunciation, where they put the stress in words, how their voice goes up and down.
And then just keep practicing with that small bit.
Yeah, replay it, shadow it again. Once you feel more comfortable, you can gradually try longer segments. It's a very active way to train your mouth and ears simultaneously.
Cool. Okay, what else? The sources also stress something that seems basic, but maybe we overlook it. Mastering everyday conversational building blocks.
Absolutely crucial. You mean things like basic greetings, hello, how are you? Politeness phrases, please, thank you, and being able to handle common questions and answers.
Yeah, exactly that stuff.
These are the absolute foundation. They form the bedrock for any more complex conversation you might have.
They give you a starting point, right? Some security.
Totally. Knowing these inside and out lets you initiate chats, keep simple conversations going, express basic needs without freezing up or having to think too hard.
Like having essential tools ready in your toolbox.
Exactly. And mastery here isn't just knowing the dictionary definition. The text really stresses internalizing the sound of them.
How native speakers actually say them.
Yes, their natural intonation, the rhythm, and knowing when to use them appropriately, contextually. This takes practice. Saying them out loud in different imagined scenarios.
So it's about making them automatic. Like you don't even have to think. They just come out. No mental translation needed for thank you.
Precisely. They become part of your active, ready-to-use spoken vocabulary.
Okay, now here's one technique the sources mention that sounds, well, maybe a bit uncomfortable at first. Recording yourself speaking English?
Yes. It can feel a little confronting, can't it? Hearing your own voice in another language. But the text argues it gives you this incredibly valuable, objective perspective on your pronunciation, your fluency, your clarity, things you might genuinely not notice while you're actually talking.
So listening back, you might suddenly hear, oh, I always mispronounce that word, or wow, I say a lot.
Exactly that. Or maybe your articulation isn't as clear as you think it is by listening critically to yourself.
You can pinpoint specific things to work on.
Precisely. You can identify your own specific weaknesses and then focus your practice on them. You can even experiment, try saying something with different intonation and hear how it sounds.
It's like having your own personal language coach, just by using your phone recorder.
That's a great way to put it. It boosts your linguistic self-awareness and lets you take charge of your own improvement in a really targeted way.
Okay, so that tackles self-assessment. What about when you're trying to say longer things? Sometimes forming complex sentences just feels overwhelming.
Right, and for that, the sources introduce a really practical strategy called chunking.
Chunking, like breaking things into chunks.
Exactly. It's about breaking down those longer, potentially intimidating sentences into smaller, more manageable units or chunks.
Can you give an example?
Sure, the text uses a Spanish example,
Yeah.
but let's try an English one. Instead of trying to force out, "Excuse me, I was wondering if you could possibly tell me where the nearest train station is," all at once.
Which feels like a mouthful.
Right, you might break it down mentally. "Excuse me, I was wondering, could you tell me where the nearest train station is?" You focus on delivering each smaller piece smoothly.
Ah, I see. So you focus on smaller linguistic building blocks.
Precisely. It really reduces that feeling of cognitive overload, that brain freeze that can happen with long sentences. Your brain can process these smaller bits more efficiently.
Which should lead to smoother, maybe more accurate speech.
Often, yes. The source uses a Lego analogy. You build a big structure from smaller individual bricks.
Makes sense. You put the chunks together.
And practicing this consistently helps you internalize common English sentence patterns. Combining these chunks becomes more automatic over time.
Which frees up your brain power to actually think about what you want to say, not just how to structure the sentence.
Exactly. It's especially helpful if you feel intimidated by speaking in full sentences. It builds confidence step by step, letting you work up to longer, more complex ideas.
Okay, chunking. Got it. So we've talked about immersion, mindset, shadowing, basics, recording, chunking, lots of individual practice, but eventually you have to talk to people, right?
That's the ultimate point, isn't it? All the individual practice is crucial preparation. But the sources strongly emphasize that real-world conversations are the final proving ground.
That's where the rubber meets the road.
Exactly. That's where the real growth happens.
Yeah.
All the practice in the world doesn't fully replace actually using the language to communicate with others.
So how do you find those opportunities?
The text really encourages you to actively look for ways to use English, maybe tying it into things you already enjoy.
Like hobbies.
Yeah. Joining a book club that reads in English, a movie group, maybe taking a cooking class or a workshop taught in English that's available near you.
And online, there must be tons of options now.
Oh, absolutely. Language exchange platforms are huge. You can connect with learners worldwide. You practice English with them, they practice your language with you.
A win-win.
Totally. The sources also mention virtual conversation groups, online language cafes. Even finding a tutor online just for conversation practice can be incredibly valuable.
The main thing seems to be actively participating. Don't just lurk.
Yes. Even if you feel your vocabulary is limited at first, jump in. Every single conversation, no matter how short or simple, is valuable experience. It builds that all-important confidence.
It chips away at the fear.
Exactly. And as we wrap up this deep dive, it's really worth remembering, like our sources keep reminding us, that getting fluent is an ongoing journey.
Not a destination you just arrive at one day.
Right. It's about having that growth mindset, believing you can improve with effort and the right strategies. Keep learning, keep practicing.
And being realistic too, I guess. It won't happen overnight.
Definitely. Have realistic expectations. Don't compare yourself too much to others. And importantly, celebrate the small wins along the way. Acknowledging your progress keeps you motivated.
That's good advice.
The text also talks about cultivating gratitude, being thankful for the resources you have, the chance to learn, the doors English can open, and finding a community helps too.
Other learners you can connect with.
Yeah, online or offline. Sharing experiences, staying motivated together, it can make a big difference.
So what does this all mean? Thinking about everything we've unpacked, maybe the biggest step isn't just about learning more words or rules. Maybe it's more about being willing to use what you already know. Even if it's imperfect, just putting yourself out there authentically. Perhaps the next real step for you listening is to actively look up one of those language exchange sites or find a local group and just start talking.
Thanks for listening. And if you found the video helpful, please hit the like button. Make sure to subscribe to my channel so you never miss an episode, and share it with others who might benefit. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes, we'd love to hear from you. So your feedback is really important to us. And if you want to continue learning right now, here in this playlist, you'll find helpful videos for English listening practice. You might want to watch it next. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.